Evening, darlings, and welcome to episode 6 of Greenwood Talks. We don't have a lot of time and we have a lot of long questions, so we're just going to go straight into it today. So question 1 is, Dear King Thranduil, my best friend is in love with a guy I don't approve of. I know most people think I don't like him because I'm in love with her, but that couldn't be further from the truth. I've known since forever that I'm not interested in lasses but in lads. I only think, like everybody else, that he's just not good enough for her. He's too young and immature and reckless and silly, and he doesn't even have a proper beard to make up for his terrible flaws. I don't know what she sees in him. Still, she's determined to marry him, even though it'd be social suicide for the both of them. I've long since given up in convincing her to do otherwise, but I'm still upset about it. Please help me. What can I do to feel better? I don't want to be all grumpy and moody at the wedding. I want to be a good friend. How can I deal with these contradictory feelings? Please give me some advice. Best wishes, a concerned friend. Darling, this is a terrible conundrum, and I know exactly what you mean about having to play a role at a wedding you don't want to be at. Anyhow, first of all, I'd say open a bottle of wine and give yourself a minute just to relax. If you can sort of talk to someone about sort of your feelings, just to sort of straighten them out, not for any other purpose, just to vent a little bit. I think it's very helpful to sort of get your thoughts in order. Then, if possible, can you maybe have a little bit of a chat with him? Perhaps he's not as bad as he seems. Perhaps he's actually quite a nice lad, except for, of course, his lack of beard. I'm assuming you're a dwarf, and so that's very, very important. But I would say just sort of have a talk with him. I'm not saying sabotage the whole affair or anything, although, that sort of outcome could be positive. But I'm just saying, sort of get to know where he's coming from so you can be a little sort of more objective. If, of course, the wedding still goes through and you still have to go to this awful event, even though you don't want to, again, alcohol, darling, just liberal doses of wine will help. It'll just keep you relaxed, you won't be so tense about the fact you want to run away screaming. And make sure, if you do have a bit of a loose tongue sometimes, that you have someone there, someone that knows you well enough, so that if you're about to say something you shouldn't, that they can stop you without it being too awkward. So that would be my advice for that. The contradictory feelings, there's not much you can do other than sort of explore them, try to move past them, and drink them away, darling. So I hope that that's useful for you. Let's go straight on to the second one now. Dear King Thranduil, I've got a question for you. I'm a king too, and I'm greatly concerned with the well-being of all of my people. Their lives, protection, and support are my priority. Unfortunately, that means having to make deals with people I'm not so comfortable negotiating with, because they're sneaky backstabbers and hypocrites. I've been there, darling. I'm thinking particularly of a king from a neighboring realm who thinks he's the best creature to have ever graced Middle-earth with his presence, and yet he's just the most annoying, self-absorbed, useless twat in Ada. I have a neighboring king just like that, actually. I don't want to see his ugly face or talk to him ever, but my duties as a king demand it. How do I deal with it? You see, I'm concerned that he's going to say something stupid as usual, and I'm going to lose my temper and punch him in the face. And although no doubt he'd deserve it, I don't want to cause my people any harm. Any advice you can offer on this would be greatly appreciated. If you're able to offer some advice, that is. I've heard you've got little patience and let your temper and your own selfish desires get in the way of doing what's best for your people and everyone. Cheers, the best king. Oh, I see what this is. Very well, darling. Let's answer your question. So, let's start with this first part about dealing with people you don't want to. Well, of course, that is the job, darling, and perhaps you should sort of have a bit of a, what is that I'm looking for? A bit of a meditation, perhaps? Some self-reflection about why it is that you don't want to be around this person. Is it because they truly are that bad, or is it perhaps that they're telling you things you don't want to hear that you need to hear? Perhaps they're telling you things, sort of truthful things about your actions or your own selfishness that you're not willing to listen to. And it's sort of good advice, but because of who it came from, because you sort of have had a personal vendetta against this person for so long, that perhaps you're not willing to open your ears and actually listen to anything they have to say. As far as this this temper issue you have, which of course is a long-standing issue, isn't it, darling? I'd say you should definitely seek some sort of anger management because, like I said, it's been a long-standing issue, and I'm not really surprised, Thorin Oakenshield, that you're willing to admit that. You seem to find pride, in fact, in the that you prefer to punch your way through things than actually deal with a problem. I'm quite offended that you are saying that I have little patience and a temper, considering who you are. And as far as selfish desires getting in the way of what's best for your people and everyone involved, shall we call up the past for just a minute now? Just one brief moment. Who was it now? You know, it wasn't that long ago, but perhaps my memory's a little bit muddy. Who was it that sort of was willing to sacrifice the lives of his own closest warriors, the only ones that would actually go with him, over a stone? Who was that? You? And who was it who unleashed a dragon on a poor group of people who had absolutely no defense whatsoever, even after they helped them? Also you. And then who was it that after these people managed to survive and slay the beast that was keeping your self-righteously guarded treasure, who was it that refused to give them aid despite promising it and having gotten aid from them? You, darling, that's right. And you wanted to go to war over it. So there's a lot here that I think sort of seems like the pot calling the kettle black. And again, a long period of self-reflection is very much needed. So once you've done that, perhaps we can talk, although of course neither of us want to do that, darling, but perhaps it would be useful. I'm going to just move on now to someone who actually deserves some advice. So the last question here is from an anonymous person who asks, King Thranduil, how do I find love? Oh, darling, that is a very, very deep and important question, and so much better than the previous one, which is total shite. So what I would say, oh dear, you know, it's hard to find love sort of when you're looking for it. Of course, you can do things to sort of increase the probability of finding the person that you can have a relationship with. Sort of surround yourself with the sorts of things that you want in a partner. If you have sort of an activity that you love and you think it's important enough, you want that in your partner, of course, go to those communities, go into the places where that is happening so that you can, of course, increase the chances of meeting someone with the same interest. You do need to make sure that when you're looking for a partner that you sort of have three kinds of things that you want to sort of think about or even write down that can be quite useful. You want your needs, your absolute needs. These are the priorities. I have to have someone who is willing to take care of my children. I have to have some, you know, come up with things that are priorities for a relationship, a make or break. This relationship can't happen unless these things are possible. Then you have the strong wants. These are things that they don't have to have them, but if they don't, you can foresee already there's going to be a problem. So you want to make sure that when you're looking for a person that, of course, they have all of the priorities and at least a grouping of some of these strong needs, because otherwise it's not going to last long term. Now, of course, if you're not looking for a long-term relationship, don't worry about that. Just scratch that off the list. And then, of course, the third thing you want is sort of the would-be good ifs. You know, the things that you would like to see in a partner. They don't have to be there, but make sure that the person has at least one of them. Just, you know, a little benefit. And so you sort of want to make it so that you have all of the priorities, some of the needs, and a couple of the would-be-nices. And I think if you can manage to do that, you'll probably have a relationship that lasts long. And just be willing to sort of compromise and be open about who you are and what you're feeling in the beginning. You don't have to disclose all your darkest secrets, of course, but you should be honest, of course, with what you're looking for in the relationship, where you are, as far as your feelings and what you think you're getting out of it. And then and just be willing to forgive some of the initial missteps. I think a lot of times early on, sort of, we don't know what to expect from the other person, or sort of what their thresholds for various things are, and so we make mistakes. And as much as we would like those to be forgiven in ourselves, we have to remember also to forgive that in the other person. So I hope any of this is helpful for you, darlings. Except for you, Thorn Oakenshield, you can sold right off. And I can't wait to talk to you all next week. So ta-ta, darlings.